Welcome to another lesson at Learn with Miss Dadsy. And our basic aim is to make sure that the learning of English language becomes easier and simple for everyone. Today we'll be looking at summary task. Summary tasks, that is our focus for today. But first, what are summary tasks? These are questions asked on a particular summary passage. It also gives specific instructions expected of students being examined with the summary passage in order to test students' summary writing skills or to test their summary skills. Why summary tasks? You might be wondering, why should we bother you or why should you be worried about summary tasks? Now, one of the reasons why we test students or students are tasked to write summary is to test students' realization and application of summary rules to a test because they have been taught. To test students' ability to focus on the valid points discussed in a test, that is, differentiates between main and subsidiary ideas. For the first point, those who haven't been exposed or taught summary task or summary writing in general, a link will be added in the description box so you can easily follow and learn a thing or two from my previous video that was posted. So let's continue. Students are also given summary tasks to identify students' critical thinking skills, because in order for you to summarize, you must be able to think critically, understand the whole passage in order for you to appreciate it. Also, it is to help conclude on students' vocabulary bank. That is, the kind of words they know and they have in mind. Now we move on to the focus of today's lesson, types of summary task. There are two main summary tasks employed by examiners during the English WASSCE examination. They are simple or straightforward summary task, complex or compound summary task. Let's move on to the first one, simple or straightforward summary task. I would want to believe that the word straightforward actually communicates something to you. So this type of summary demands only one action or activity to be done. That is it. It demands only one action or activity to be done or performed. It often requires learners to summarize in simple sentence or sentences. Hence, there is no use of conjunction, emphasis on conjunction. And at this point, if you are not familiar with the word conjunction, I would advise that you pause, read on it, and come back to continue with the summary task video. But it basically looks at words that join sentences together or clauses. So, and, or, but, because, all those conjunctions. So, example of simple or straightforward summary task. In one sentence, state the intention of the writer. In one sentence, explain how one can overcome failure. When you are presented with a summary task, these are the type of straightforward summary tasks that you are likely to be presented with. Now let's try our hands on some examples. So example 1. In one sentence, summarize the short paragraph below. The students of St. Gregory Catholic Senior High School wear fitted dress on Mondays. On Tuesdays, they wear pleated skirt with blouse. On Wednesdays, they wear PE kits. On Thursdays, they wear their outing dress, and Fridays, they wear their African print dress. This is just a simple paragraph. It's not a full passage, and it's to help you understand the basic concept of a straightforward summary task. Now, some of the answers you are likely to come up with. The uniforms they wear to school every day of the week. Now, when you read the passage, you realize that the name of the school was mentioned and every day of the week, that is from Monday to Friday, was mentioned. And it wasn't just mentioned. Much focus was on the type of uniform they wear. So you can pick this answer, or You can consider the school uniform students of St. Gregory Catholic Senior High School students wear during the week. Any of these is accepted. Now let's move on to example 2. The same passage in 2 sentences summarize the short paragraph below. This is to tell you that a paragraph or a passage can actually require you to summarize it in 2 sentences, meaning you have to consider it at 2 different levels. It's the same content, it's the same information, but you need to consider it at 2 different levels. So with this case, I'm likely to consider the types of uniform students of St. Gregory Catholic students have. That is it, the types. Now, how uniform of St. Gregory Catholic SHS vary on a daily basis. Because they wear different uniform every blessed day. So example 3. Let's read the short paragraph. To become an intellectual, one must be determined and willing to sacrifice time. Becoming an intellectual requires one to be focused and time conscious. Reading widely on your area of study is a good step to becoming an intellectual in that field. Now, this is the short paragraph you have been presented with. You realize that a lot of information has been given there. The first one is, one must be determined and willing to sacrifice time. The second one is, one needs to be focused and time conscious. The third one is, one needs to read widely on their area of study. These are the basic information that has been presented in this short paragraph. But we have been asked to summarize in 1 sentence. How do we go about it? Can you guess? Try your hands on it. After you finish summarizing in 1 sentence, it also tells you in 3 sentences, 1 for each, summarize how one can become an intellectual. 1 for each basically means all the points that has been listed in the paragraph or the passage. You should make sure that every sentence you write communicates or represents one of the points that has been presented in the real paragraph or passage. So let's look at your answer. The first one is how to become an intellect or intellectual, because everything there is just educating us on how one can become an intellectual. So at the lower level, we can then decide that, okay, this one fits to be a title. But then, since we have been asked to summarize in 1 sentence, this one fits perfectly. Now let's move to the second part, where we are tasked to summarize in 3 different sentences. So now we are going to look at the 3 areas of focus that was presented in the short paragraph. So you can start with a preamble. It's optional. To become an intellectual, the first answer, one must be determined, and it was what's mentioned in the passage. One must be time conscious. One must read widely. So we have placed the picture of the passage or paragraph beside it. Quickly, you can go through and try to relate the answers if it fits what you wrote. So example 4. Read through the passage and then let's see if we can come up with the answers on our own. So in 2 sentences, 1 for each. Most of the time, these words that are highlighted demands that you pay extra attention to them. The sentences you are expected to present are 2. But then the 2 sentences shouldn't all talk about the same thing. If that happens, it means one will be marked wrong. So in 2 sentences, 1 for each. One for each. Summarize why pirated textiles are common in the market. Meaning now you are looking for 2 reasons why pirated textiles are common on the market. That is what they mean for 1 for each. They mean by 1 for each. So why pirated textiles are common on the market. Read through. I'm sure by now you are almost at the end. And then you come to the answers. There is no legislation. Pirated textiles are sold at lower prices or they are cheap. Now let's move to complex or compound summary tasks. The first one we said demanded you consider only one word, reason, or you give just one focus. So this type of summary task demands that one gives two answers in one sentence. So it's expecting you to consider two different things, but then in one sentence. That is, the summary will be in one sentence, be it compound or complex sentence. And at this point, I will advise again, if you don't know the difference between compound and complex sentence, you quickly read through and then you come back to continue. So it also means two issues or ideas are to be found in that one sentence. It is still one sentence, don't get it wrong. But then two ideas or issues are to be found in that sentence based on the instruction that has been given. And the instruction is definitely related to the passage that you are presented with. Since it is expected that two ideas be found in one sentence, conjunctions such as and, also, etc. can be used. In the simple summary task aspects, we said conjunctions can't be used. But then, in the complex or compound summary task, we are saying conjunctions can be used because in order to present two ideas, one needs to join in one sentence, one needs to join them using a conjunction. So example 1, in one sentence, summarize the first step for making good speech and the reason for the step. So it is one sentence, but the first thing you are looking at is the step, the first step for making good speech. That is one sentence. And if it had ended there, that would have qualified to be a simple summary text. But then it goes on to say, and the reason for this step, meaning you need to add extra information, which happens to be the reason, and another sentence or point on its own, but you are expected to put both in one sentence. Okay. Are you scared of speaking before a large audience? Here are a few points to make effective speeches in public. Perhaps the most important is to be sure of what you are going to say by gathering all the necessary information about the topic. This may sound obvious enough, but it is amazing how many people get up to speak when, in fact, they have little to say. This is the skimming stage, so I'm just reading so that you get a clear idea of what the entire paragraph is about. Now let's move to the scanning stage, where you will now read silently and try to identify the first step. Afterwards, you identify the reason why someone who wants to overcome the fear of speaking to a large audience should consider. Okay, so let's see if you're able to get the answer correct. So to ensure you speak well, the more conversant you are with the point to be discussed, the more confident you will be. To ensure you speak well, the more conversant you are with the point to be discussed, the more confident you will be. Okay, so let's look at the answers. The first step is to get enough information so that one may speak confidently. So there is a conjunction used there. So that means result. If you do this, the result is this. If you gather enough information, obviously when you are speaking, you speak confidently. Getting enough information about the topic helps one speak confidently. So you can pick any of these two options and it's good. You realize the second one doesn't actually make use of a conjunction, but then it's still correct because whatever information we need there is there. So, and it's June 2020 WASSCE questions. June 2000 WASSCE question. So example 2. Reading widely on your area of study is a good step to becoming an intellectual in that field. This is because it equips you with all the relevant information to make informed inputs during intellectual discussions. In one sentence, summarize one step a person can take to become an intellect and why it is necessary. It means it's a complex or compound summary task. So, read through again and try to first identify the step, and second, why the step is necessary in the first place. Okay, let's move on. In 2 sentences, one for each, summarize the negative effects of pirated textiles. It is in the light of the negative effects of pirated textiles on the local manufacturing companies and vendors that the textile workers took to the streets of Accra Central Business District recently. The local manufacturers are unable to compete with the dealers in the pirated textiles. The national economy suffers as a result of the Unpatriotic Act, as people prefer the pirated textiles sold at a cheaper price. There are no taxes paid on most of these imported textiles because the smugglers outwit the tax agencies, and some of the tax officials connive with these smugglers. This causes the government to lose revenue. So I read the question, the summary task again. In 2 sentences, one for each, summarize the negative effect of pirated textiles. So, the local manufacturers or traders cannot compete with the dealers in the pirated textiles. Remember, this is a simple summary task. The government loses revenue or is adversely affected. Now, when you are writing it during WASSCE, you just pick one of the two. So, the first one, the local manufacturers cannot compete with the dealers in pirated textiles. The government loses revenue. That is the answer. Or you now going for the government is adversely affected. But then I prefer the first one because with that one, it's specific or particular about how the government is affected adversely. It states that it loses revenue. Conclusion. Understanding the summary task or question given makes it easier to identify the answers from the passage, such that you don't use the concept of the complex or compound summary task for that of the simple or straightforward summary task. That would mean automatically you'll be marked wrong. And the interesting thing is that every sentence you write carries 5 marks depending on the number of questions that are asked. But then, summary task carries 30 marks. 30 marks. So if you're asked to write 6 sentences, usually which is the case, the first one might ask you to write 3 and the second might ask you to write 3. Means you have 30 marks out of the 200 you were expected to score during WASSCE. Thank you, and contact us via our email f.z112@gmail.com. Let us know which topics or issues you would want us to address. You can also follow our Facebook page at Learn English with Miss Dazi or Learn with Miss Dazi. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.